Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. Last night I finished exploring Act 6.2 and that is exactly what we're going to talk about in today's video. We're going to talk about the good, the bad and the ugly I found while questing through this content. So first of all, we're going to talk about the good. The good in this content is that a lot of parts were actually fun. Especially on like many paths, I did end up enjoying myself. I think the global nodes for most part were really interesting, like in 6.21, the global node where you had to knock them down. That was cool. I made a video about it. I did find it slightly annoying at times, but still it was kind of like positive annoyance where I knew what I have to do and it was up to me to do it. There were no specific champion restrictions and stuff like that, and I like that kind of content. It made it trickier. It gave you absolutely kind of no benefit for having the node over there, but at the same time it was an enjoyable piece of content just because it wasn't like champion specific. That wasn't any kind of like major downsides. It was just a mission you had to do in order to win the fight. You had to knock opponent down while they had the shield disabled. It's cool. In 6.22, global node that incinerate, okay, that was a bit more specific, but still you had plenty of answers for the node and I ended up enjoying it, especially how well it interacted with like Ghost and a few other champions, and I definitely had a good time for most part. 6.3 as well, once again, you can enjoy that node. There are really nice Hulk cheese videos, Killmonger cheese videos. Ghost does absolutely fantastic there. If you want to play it safe and sorry, there's like Quake and there's Captain America Infinity War, Archangel. Plenty of champions can do that node. Plenty of good champions can do that node really well for most part, and I liked it. That was fresh piece of content that I did find slightly tricky at times, but definitely enjoyable and challenging. And the global nodes overall, I think, were pretty much spot on. They did kind of challenge me. I didn't feel that they are completely kind of out of order. I was having fun trying to find answers to them and playing through the content. So the global nodes is definitely by far the best thing about 6.2. I did enjoy the global nodes. I did enjoy the fact that some of them could be used and abused. Some of them gave you absolutely no benefit, just kind of increased your chance to make a mistake, but still felt challenging. And 6.26 had no global node, which is also kind of, to me, made sense just because of like champion boss. But yeah, so that is the good part. Unfortunately, that's where it about ends, because global nodes by themselves on some of the easier paths, absolutely great fun. The problems start once you actually start exploring it and once you encounter some more, let's say, interactive fights. And the bad. So we're going to talk about the bad first of all. The bad is going to be the champion class gates. Rarity gates in this case, like having 4 6-star champions, okay, they suck. Like I did not enjoy them, especially not 4. Like 2, perfectly fine. 3, somewhat annoying. 4 was well too much. Like 4, just because that only leaves you with one champion that you kind of have, like, that you can rely on, and then 4 of the champions pretty much often have to be like throw-ins for the fight. And so if in future there are any kind of gated paths, gated nodes, I think you should not possibly ever add more than 3 champion restrictions. So we as players at least have 2 chances to pick what we want to use for most of the path and boss, for instance, not just try and find like one ultimate Swiss Army knife. So I do believe that 4 champion restriction was definitely way too much. The second bad thing about these noded and gated paths was specifically for all the class paths. Like it says, for instance here, 4 5-star cosmic champions. Now I think that since Act 6 is already limited to 5 and 6 stars only, regretfully, like another decision I disagree with, I think it would be perfectly fine if you're able to take in your 4-star champions, especially if you're going to put like 6-star gates on them. Like it shouldn't make much of a difference if somebody brings in some 4 stars. Anyways, that's a different story. But the fact that it has to be 5-star cosmic champions, I definitely do not agree with that. because more often than not, I ended up in situations where I wanted to bring a 6-star. Like, why not? I have a 6-star Cosmic, right? For instance, in the last map against Champion Boss, I have a duped 6-star Morningstar, which I could use against the boss fight, which would actually be a useful champion, and that's a Mystic. But I couldn't bring in my Morningstar in Mystic Path because the gate specified that I have to use a 5-star Mystic champions and 4 of them. So I was left with the choice either to use a rank 3 Morningstar, either to rank up my Morningstar to rank 4 and then try and clear the champion boss, even though I already have a 6-star, or just use some different strategy altogether. So I think that is definitely where the gates kind of miss their mark. Since we are limited to 5 and 6-star champions only already in Act 6, once you have class specific gates, I do not think they should also specify whether they're meant to be 5 or 6 stars. When you want to have 6-star gate, fine. If you want to have Cosmic gate, it should just state that you need to have 4 Cosmic champions. It shouldn't say whether there should be 5 stars or 6 stars or whatever. So yeah, that is like a thing that really kind of ended up bugging me, and that is one of the main reasons where I felt that my roster is falling short, just because in this kind of gated scenario, I kind of pretty much felt that I need to have all the champions in 5 and 6 stars, depending kind of like on occasion. Like, perfect example was with my Morningstar. I had a 5-star Morningstar rank 3, which I never want to upgrade just because I already have a duped 6-star, right? But now I was kind of put in a situation where, should I upgrade my Morningstar? Like, is it worth it? Should I do it just for this path? And I think it's extremely kind of ill designed. So these class paths should only be to class, not specific 5-star that class. It should be 5 and 6 stars of that class. And that would make the content a lot more open and available for many people. So that is the bad thing. And now we're going to get into the ugly, right? And there is some ugly to get into, guys. So as ugly, whoops, I shouldn't have done that. I should have exited the quest. So I'm going to mention a few specific examples of ugly, first of all. So example number 1, 6.22 boss. That's horrible. I made a video about him, how to defeat him, and unfortunately, I didn't find a single champion in-game pretty much by themselves that can defeat this guy. Like, at least for that not to be some sort of extremely boosted, extremely difficult fight. I think it is an absolutely horrible game design because it involved you basically needing poison immunity, incinerate immunity, shock immunity, and also a fury buff. And there's not a single champion like that in the game who can answer all that. And you could say like there are champions that answer all buffs, but it also included active and passive buffs, because shock is passive, incinerate and poison are active buffs. And yeah, to take down that guy without spending fortune, you need to have not only specific champions as 5 or 6 stars, but you also need to have this specific champion combination. That's kind of like when you're tossing a coin, you have 50-50 chance to guess what it's gonna land on, right? But to do it 2 times in a row, you have much smaller chance to do it. You have 1/4 of a chance, because you do not only need to have the specific 5 or 6 star for one answer, you need to have like a specific combination of 2 or more champions in order to be able to kill him. And I think that's well out of order. I think not a single game design piece should ever be created like that anywhere in game. And that's horrible. I can't believe they actually made it live. Can't believe nobody said it's a bad idea. I can't believe nobody thought people would be outraged. And it absolutely baffled me. Now that once we're done with Mr. Sinister Boss, we're going to be talking about what else was ugly. And what else is ugly is the Mordo boss. Mordo boss by itself, the fight isn't too bad. I did manage to solo that boss with like a 6-star wasp several times. And overall, it's a tricky fight, but it's definitely doable. It's not too bad. However, the thing that is ugly and just screams cash grab and screams spend more money or spend more items is this node called Strength in Numbers. For each member of the attacker's team that is knocked out, the attacker suffers 25% attack and ability accuracy reduction. That node on a boss is pure cash grab. There's absolutely no need for it. It does not make the actual fight easier or harder, right? It makes the fight pretty much impossible if your team is more or less dead, or it makes no difference if you are willing to spend 100 units for a team revive to make sure everybody in your team is alive, right? So that is again one extremely unethical piece of node that simply does nothing to your game experience aside from makes you frustrated because you are forced to spend. Now I tried to do this node with like one champion knocked out, and you can't do it, like, because the fight is tricky itself. I mean, possibly you technically can, but chances are your parry is gonna fail, you do less damage. Then, for instance, I was using Wasp and my stun on heavy attack didn't activate and I got immediately punished and things like that, and you're gonna die because the fight itself is tricky. You do less damage and your abilities don't trigger, let alone if your two champions are knocked out, you have no chance pretty much then. So yeah, this node has no business being in content like this anywhere, because it does nothing for the fight. It just basically tells you spend some money, revive for the boss fight if you want to get it down, which is silly, which is unethical, which is cash grabby as hell, which instantly makes you pissed off. It has absolutely no relevance to the fight itself. It doesn't make it harder, it doesn't make it easier, it gives you no benefit. It just tells you you have to spend this amount of money in order to get past, which is, yeah, pretty much you play with credit card or save resource and time. So yeah, absolutely hated that node. Even though it wasn't like the biggest roadblock, it just felt super cheap and underhanded. Like, right, I never got like stuck or spent half an hour doing that fight. It just felt super cheap and underhanded, like as in I'm forced to pay a toll when playing this quest, kind of like, that's it, you pay now. Anyways, and then the champion boss. Now if we're gonna go in 626, yeah, champion boss itself, I think isn't too bad. Like, honestly, like it's, the bug obviously made it a lot worse, but overall I think the champion boss itself isn't too bad. What makes it bad is that it is at the end of a long path. Like when Thanos fight came out, I congratulated that fight, right? I welcomed that fight because I felt that spending 9 energy and not having to do like any other fights to get to him was perfectly good balance for that fight. Because if I messed up, I could back out, go back in again, try 8 times, whatever, with 1 energy. Wonderful. I felt like I was being pushed to play better and practice. Here, after you have done a long path, possibly spent resources, and when you face a boss like this, you felt you are having your money ripped out of your wallet. So my main kind of point of criticism here is, if they wanted to have a boss like champion boss on his own by itself, it wouldn't be bad at all. If they wanted to stick with their gate thing, they could have added one easy fight with a specific gate before that, and then you get to the champion boss. Done. That would be perfect. That would be welcomed. I would welcome it anyways, because then even if the champion boss is hard, you can still get it down by skill or by spending, whether you choose to revive or whether you choose to back out, do one simple fight and get back in there and try again. Right, now the fight is champion specific, which isn't perfect. However, there are several answers. There's like Morningstar Voodoo, Magic can do the fight, Symbiote Supreme is perfect for it, and there are last 10%, which I did with Magic. I have seen Quake do it, She-Hulk do it, Captain America Infinity War do it. There aren't many counters, and it's definitely tricky, and it's kind of like a lot of practice fight. But again, we would have had a lot more chance to practice if there wouldn't be 50,000 fights before that, right? So right now, when I get a champion, like, I'm not going to be making many champion videos. I might make one with like few of them, but I'm not going to be going in there, spending entire energy refill and taking the champions I need to kind of get to him, and about 40 minutes to half an hour, like half an hour to 40 minutes of my time just to try and have another attempt to record a video or practice or enjoy the fight. No, I'm not going to be doing that over and over and over again. Now, if there would be like one fight before him, or if he would be only fighting quest, yeah, hell yeah, I would be living in that quest. I would be practicing. I would feel absolutely awesome, and I'd be really happy for the time when I do manage either to solo him or get down him without items, and I would feel like I'm accomplished something, like I finished a piece of content. Right now, I felt like I'm getting my money ripped out of my hands. Also, when we're talking about cash grabby fights, especially in Act 6, 2-6, now we can take a look at this Do You Bleed? Why? Like, first of all, I disagree with any node that says you do no damage or you do 90% less damage unless X, Z, or Y. Second, and do you bleed is one of them. Basically says you do no damage unless you're able to bleed upon it, which is annoying, right? But why would you put Rogue on it, for instance? Emma Frost, like, okay, Ghost and Killmonger, I get it. That makes the fight a bit more challenging and still play around it, fair enough. Emma Frost, that's just mean. Rogue, that's just nasty. Like, honestly, when I was doing that fight, I spent about 10 minutes or so with Blade. In that fight, I dealt about 20% of her life as damage, nearly fell asleep, ended up quitting the fight or getting hit on purpose, and going back in there with like Ghost and hitting her block and kind of like dealing with a node on technicalities. Like, why would you possibly put Rogue on such a node? What's next, Omega Red or completely bleed immune champions? Like, why would you do that? That doesn't make the fight harder, it just makes it 50 times longer. It's just frustrating and infuriating. And what is the problem is, like, there was absolutely no need for it. It didn't change your fighting experience, whether it would be Rogue or the Psylocke or Archangel or any champion, right? It wouldn't make a difference. It's the same fight. It's just the length of the fight different. And this is just kind of felt like Kabam are being like a spiteful child. Like, they know it's gonna happen, they know the champion's gonna go down, and they're gonna do everything they can to possibly kind of make it as annoying and unpleasant as possible. So yeah, that also was like a really negative point of experience. And the last thing I want to mention, there are few fights in 6-3, I believe, that also just absolutely baffled me, and interactions in between them, and I can't believe they made the live into contest. So first of all, keep this in mind. It is behind the path that has 3 6-star requirement. That means you can have 2 of your like best champions, 2 of your god champions, and then you have to have 3 fill ring champions. And then you're gonna start off with all or nothing 200% power gain on Moon Knight, which is like on his full moon phase, right? Then there's also Icarus global node, which basically ensures you have to kind of parry and you have to kind of like throw your heavy attacks and stuff like that in order to get rid of Furies. And then you have Force of Will and Aggression Fury, right? It's like, why? Like, that is just plain nasty. You put that kind of fight. First of all, I think that this fight in particular has no business being in this content whatsoever. But if you do put it in, at least put it in a path that has no gate, and I have full utility of my roster to deal with it, because it just felt underhanded. If that's not enough, on the same path you have to deal with Starburst and Mesmerize. You have to deal with okay, War Machine wasn't too bad, just like extra block damage basically, but also keep in mind all of these fights has Aggression Fury on them, which basically means you either need to hit them a lot or you can die from a single block hit. And then they had Juggernaut, which is immune to all debuffs, and if you do try to debuff him, he gains 30% of a bar of power. So if you accidentally do parry him, he gains a lot of power. Problem against Juggernaut, obviously, because he's unstoppable, you will want to block or parry him, and because of Icarus node, you'll want to heavy him. These fights just felt super cheap, and the cheapest of them all felt this Deadpool, which has, let's see what he has. He has obviously Icarus, that's very important, and then he has Recovery and Buffet. And Recovery and Buffet, and the Buffet is not 5%, it's 15%. So, and since all the healing abilities are 150% more effective, he ended up healing just about 100k health every time Buffet triggered. That's not all. Should the Buffet trigger from, let's say, parry from one of these Icarus Furies, I immediately got degen to death. So, this fight is behind a gate of 3 6-stars, and so yeah, if you parry him, you degen to death. If you trigger any buff, like Dexterity, he regains 100k of his health. So then if you do mess up somewhere at the point and you die, then you basically start a new fight. And if you can trigger another buff, you're basically going to have to start over, because he's immediately going to regain another 100k. Every time you make a mistake, he regains 100k. And then once you get him down, he obviously has his original heal there. So it just felt like super kind of cheap, nasty piece of content, and you had to deal with all that, keeping in mind that you need something to deal with Morningstar, which is going to bleed you a lot, something to deal with Omega Red, which isn't going to be, well, it wasn't the most difficult boss fight, but still, and all of the cells. And yeah, it just felt kind of like they're pushing you in corner and taking out your credit card slowly but surely while you're watching them do that. And there are a few more fights that are kind of similar in nature, but again, for most part, many of the nodes, many of the fights, many of the global nodes I absolutely enjoyed. Class gates, I think, should not be restricted to specific style level. And lastly, some of the nodes felt just mean, just underhanded, just cash grabby as hell. And that ultimately is what absolutely ruined the experience for me. And this probably is kind of like the content in the game currently that I have played through, and I have played through all of it, that feels the worst, the nastiest, the cheapest, the kind of more cash grabby and roster demanding. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you guys enjoyed my rant. If you did, hit that like button, hit that sub button, and I'm gonna talk to you guys soon.